Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made his annual trip to the UN in New York. Whenever I remind myself where the UN is, it pisses me off. That's a good start to the episode. But yeah, his annual trip, where of course the same things happen. All the world leaders leave. Turns out that that is the main headline in all the media, in all the news websites and so on. Even though it happens exactly the same every year. And by the way, I started watching, I don't know, 10 minutes before he actually went on stage. Those people came into the room in order to leave the room and make this whole show that they do about how we're not going to listen to the leader of the Jewish state. Of course, most of those people are representing dictatorships. That's what the UN is. It's a group of dictatorships funded by and given legitimacy by free countries. So Netanyahu did his speech, and we're gonna discuss it now. So, welcome to the reality show. I'm joined by Stuart Margolis, Daniel Kraus. Um, I want to start at the beginning because this speech had parts that I, wanted to just applaud, and then it had parts that really made me sick. But the beginning was good. He listed uh, Israel's achievements, especially in the last year, but generally in the past 2 years. And I say this all the time, I am a critic of Israel's response to October 7th, but I also put it in the context of how the West fights wars. And I think Netanyahu showed, first of all, that Israel has done more in these past 2 years than America did after 9/11 to actually make the Middle East a better place. And I think Israel has fought more closer to decisive or decisively than any Western power in maybe since World War II. And Netanyahu lists it, and he does it with the map that you can see on the thumbnail of this show. He starts for some reason with the Houthis in Yemen, which is not really where I would start if I was listing Israel's achievements, because that there's still a lot to do there. And Gaza, where Hamas is definitely again, could have been defeated in a few weeks, but is definitely not where it was 2 years ago. Hezbollah, which was nearly decimated until Israel granted them a free ceasefire. The Syrian regime, which would not have fallen had it not been for Israel's action in Lebanon, and the Iranian regime, which was hit in spectacular fashion before Trump forced Israel into a ceasefire there. And of course, Israel's ability to strike in Iran was in part, the fact that they had all this free airspace to fly through because they got rid of all these evil regimes on the way. So Netanyahu starts with accomplishments that are real and should be celebrated. Stuart.
Yeah, I agree. I think I may have overall had a more positive response. I thought the speech was quite good. There were with caveats, but I think you also have to keep in mind that Netanyahu has always had good speeches. He's a good speaker. Unlike our current president here, I would say. But what he actually does, as opposed to his rhetoric, I think he falls down sometimes. But yeah, I thought the speech was quite good. And like you, there were many times where I was like, yes, 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 the world needs to hear this. Unfortunately, as you pointed out, much of the world will not hear it. We will. I mean, they not just the people that walked out of the room, but there's millions of people that should hear this that will refuse to listen to this, and that's the sad reality. But that's what's where we are.
By the way, not among those millions, the people of Gaza, because Israel blasted the speech into Gaza from loudspeakers and apparently took over the audio of the phones and blasted it through everybody's cell phone in Gaza. So the people of Gaza heard it. I don't know how many of them speak English. The ones on Twitter do, but
Right.
yeah, that was I love that. That's a very nice touch. Quickly, somebody in the chat says Assad falling was not a good thing. Sorry, not sorry for your loss, dude. Yeah, it's of course a good thing. That doesn't mean that the people who replaced him are better, but remember, and this is a part of what Israel has done in the past 2 years that doesn't get that much attention. Right after Assad fell, Israel destroyed pretty much everything that the Syrian army had. So, as bad as it is for the people of Syria that they have another dictator with a more Islamist kind of leaning, in terms of Israel and in terms of anybody in Syria being able to threaten Israel or the West, um, yeah, the situation right now is better. We're also, he mentioned Syria. We're gonna maybe get to that later in the show. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, well, I wanted to bring on something else and immediately forgot. Well, talking about the speech itself, I'm always thinking when I'm listening to that of what is really the purpose of the UN speech, because when you go to when you look up like the biggest UN speeches or the most controversial UN speeches, it's always a bunch of dictators who are talking about how evil the West is, and to me, it's like we should just kick out all of us, the good nations, and let the dictators like talk to each other about how bad we are. And when it comes to sort of our speeches or sort of the Western speeches or this specifically Netanyahu, well, one thing I would start with, it's definitely better than last year's. I think the fact I still bring up that scene of Netanyahu talking about how he wants to be friends with Saudi Arabia, and then the camera goes over to Saudi Arabian seats, who of course are not there because they've left with the others. And as you said, you saw the similar thing here, which again is performative. Like you could see them leaving. They are taking pictures while they're leaving. It's of course just to virtue signal. Um, and yeah, all the headlines are around that. Like, oh, Netanyahu looked distraught after everybody left. No, he looked okay. He did his speech normally. There were a couple of funny things. I would even
Yeah, I'm
say
sure he
that.
was expecting everybody to stay, and it came as a complete surprise that the Iranian delegation walked out of the room.
Yeah, so this was absolutely to be expected. So I would say on that note, absolutely improvement, big focus on. I mean, many of the things he said is pretty much things we say here every single day and should be repeated. The main thing, of course, as Stuart said, I wish Netanyahu fully embraced what he has been saying. But when it comes to standing up morally, which I think this is the biggest lack there is when it comes to standing up morally. I think Netanyahu did a good job. Although, of course, there were a few things where he still tries to justify Israel's existence. We could bring up the examples, but it's basically, oh, look how moral we are in waging this war, which he should absolutely reject because it doesn't fit. I mean, the people who should be listening to that are not even in the room, and they wouldn't listen anyway.
Yeah, and so at some point he does talk about Syria and how talks have started between Israel and Syria. Now, these are not peace talks. These are talks about, basically uh, preventing bad things from happening, supposedly. And my concern there is that this will involve Syria, which, as somebody in the chat says, is run by Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda without an army, again, but with some weapons. Uh, my fear is that Israel will give back the parts of Syria that it has taken, and it absolutely should not do that at this point. And I think the so-called Syrian Hermon, I think it's called the same in English, is should always that should be permanent, and that should be something that Israel, doesn't allow Syria to tower over, Israeli troops. I really hope that's made clear. But after he said that, he was saying that peace is possible with Lebanon if you don't allow Hezbollah to continue doing their thing. And then the camera did show the empty seat where the Lebanese delegation is. So yeah, he's still doing that, and he's doing that. I don't know exactly for whose benefit. Israel should not be begging any of these countries for peace. Now, I generally, as I've said, I oppose the idea of any free country having diplomatic relations at all with dictatorships. By doing so, you are rewarding basically thugs who took over a plot of land. So I oppose that generally, and the idea of Lebanon, Hezbollah was part of Lebanon's government a year ago. So yeah, Lebanon is still a threat, and they are not getting rid of Hezbollah, even though they seem, they don't seem as friendly with them now that Israel took care of that problem for them. So yeah, be wary of peace with savages, even ones who don't hide in tunnels but have, government buildings. Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know nearly as much about the situation in Lebanon as you do, but uh, yeah, my impression is that there are at least some sort of rational or semi-rational factions in Lebanon, which I don't think there really is in Gaza, and certainly nobody that's brave enough to speak out. So I mean, I do think it makes sense potentially to make it clear that Israel is open to a rational discourse with really anyone who's going to be rational. So I don't think that that's necessarily appeasing, or to just make that clear that Israel's strength does not mean that they're not willing to talk to rational people about the region. So I that's giving a more positive spin to Netanyahu's position, which may or may not be warranted, but I hope that that's where it's coming from, rather than sort of the mealy-mouthed appeasement that often is behind these kinds of things.
Yeah, and look, Israel has famously signed peace deals with two of its neighbors, and if you look at those situations, that is not peace. Those countries are a threat to Israel. People forget in Egypt, first of all, the people hate the Jews and want the Jewish state wiped off the map, and the dictators, want to keep their jobs as dictators, and so they're not gonna fight for Israel against their own people. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think those countries are threats. Lebanon certainly is less a threat, but and yeah, there are factions. I don't know if they're rational, but they're certainly not as much of a threat. And during we actually showed this a year ago when there was when Israel finally started fighting back against Hezbollah. There were places where Hezbollah terrorists went into villages in order to shoot from there, and people like beat them up and kicked them out, and that was beautiful to see. They didn't want it done in their name. In Syria, there were people celebrating the demise of Hezbollah. So yeah, I point out that there are no people in Gaza, as far as we can tell, fighting against Hamas, but elsewhere in the Arab world, there are such people, and to any extent that we can find those people and have alliances with them, if not with their governments, I'm 100% in favor of that. Daniel.
Yeah, just quickly, Hezbollah wasn't in the government last year. It's still in the government. Hezbollah is still holding two ministerial positions in the Lebanese cabinet. It's not technically Hezbollah; it's their political wing. I think it's called like Loyalty to the Resistance or something like that. But it's basically it's sort of similar to the Hamas situation, where technically Hamas is the political wing, and I always forget which one is it. Al-Qassam is the Hamas, and or Al-Aqsa is the Hamas.
Oh, Al-Aqsa Martyrs.
Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade is Hamas, and Al-Qassam is the Fatah, right? Fatah line. So yeah, it's sort of like similar situation in Lebanon. Now, sort of again going to the speech, I think one way you could think about it is in a way you can never really talk to your enemies during war. It's not like Churchill's speech where to speak to the hearts of the Nazi party about maybe changing their mind about how to wage a war. No, it was speaking to us about that we should fight the evil. And in a similar way, Netanyahu's speech could be not to the people who oppose Israel, but to the people who support Israel. The fact that this is a right thing to do. You shouldn't abandon your position just because the world is against you, and you need to uphold it because this is not simply a regional conflict. In some ways, this is a civil fight for civilization. Iran is a big supporter of Hezbollah, the Houthis, as Netanyahu mentioned, the Iraqi militias that are supported by Iran. And Iran together with Qatar are supporting a lot of terrorism in the West, are supporting a lot of even people within influential positions in the West. So they are doing this, and we need to fight that. And Netanyahu's speech, to some extent, could be viewed as continue fighting, do not let go, because this would really ruin you. I think he brought up that the attack on Iran, how in some ways the West had a big sigh because nobody wants nuclear armed Iran. Not even Russia and China, I don't think, would really want to see nuclear Iran. So everybody is thanking Iran for it, is thanking Israel for it, and everybody is of course condemning Israel for it. And I think the biggest thing that is really like sending it to the Palestinians. It has to be remembered. What is the most educated Arab group in the Middle East? It is the Palestinians. And they know English. Many of them do know English. So they would know what this is. And I hope they translate it to Arabic for those who don't. And Netanyahu's speech was really strong in that way. Knesset voting against the Palestinian state. The fact that he called out Palestinians. Palestinians have supported October 7. They went to the streets and celebrated. They celebrated 9/11. He's telling that to Palestinians. He says, I know what you're doing. I wish he showed it in actions because now he's coming across as a bit schizophrenic. But even starting with words might lead to some positive.
Yeah. By the way, whenever Netanyahu says there will not be a Palestinian state, as much as I like hearing that, I do remember, I am old enough to remember Netanyahu, I believe it was 2009, calling for the creation of a Palestinian state. So, did it take October 7th for him to understand that? I don't know, but yeah, Netanyahu, has been has done a lot of bad in his life, and it still does a lot of bad alongside some good. Thank you, Bull Moose, for the super chat. Bull Moose says, right now the Syrian Druze are training and preparing to declare their own independence or at least autonomy. I don't know if it's realistic, but worth a shot. Well, as we talked yesterday on the Daily Objective with Alex, we will do an episode about the Syrian Druze at some point soon. It will be with Alex and perhaps somebody else who's knowledgeable, because I am not. But yeah, Israel did, you know, among the things Israel has done in Syria over the past years, it also went in to protect the Druze from an actual genocide. That word does have an actual definition. It's a real word, despite the way it's being used. And that was a real attempt at it that Israel prevented. It it would be interesting to see, if Israel does have, and Netanyahu mentioned the Druze in this speech. It would be interesting to see what kind of deal there is, and when Syria violates that, at least in relation to the Druze, how Israel will react. I want to go back to well, kind of going back to the whole discussion about where Israel has allies in general. The thing that I've been repeating, and Israel wants people to love them so much that they will tell themselves that that is the case even when it's not. And anything that remotely sounds sympathetic to Israel even existing, people will take as as those are now our best friends. And one of those things was the Indonesian president saying in his UN speech that Israel must live in security or blah blah blah. And Netanyahu actually mentions this in his UN speech as if he found this new buddy. Remember, Indonesia doesn't recognize the state of Israel. This is not an ally. They maybe don't sound like Iran, but that should not be the threshold. Anyway, Stuart.
Yeah. It's sad that Israel has to cling to anyone who isn't actively trying to destroy them as that means they're a friend or a good guy. Um, it, yeah, Israel has frighteningly few real allies, and the U.S. remains an ally, but there's a lot of anti-Israel sentiment in the U.S. I think I think there's a couple of real problems. One is that I don't think most people have any conception of why a nation should exist. They think that Palestine should be a nation. Why? They don't know why. It's just something they've heard. They don't know. They don't know. What justifies a nation. They don't really understand fundamentally anymore why the U.S. was justified in becoming a separate nation from England back in 1776. They don't understand these things, and it's really a bad sign that so many people have been taken in by such transparent propaganda. And so I really do worry that even the U.S., which is by far Israel's greatest ally in the world, may not stand firm with them, for that much longer. I worry.
Yeah, I share that concern. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, greetings from LA using 5G again. Did you see the anti-Semites walking out of the UN hall? Yes, you missed the beginning of the show. We already gave them all the all the time they deserve. Paul says, Razi, you should get Mansour Ashkar. He's here on YouTube and in Truth. Yeah, I don't remember if we've actually reached out or we've talked about reaching out, but I agree. Yeah, Mansour Ashkar is somebody I would love to have on the channel. Somebody says UAE seems to be an ally. So this is again, the West doesn't really stand for the principles that made it what it is, and no Western country does, but they should. And if they do, something to consider when you consider who is an ally is not just is their official slogan "Death to America." There's more to that. So we talk on this show about, and I mention this often, Dubai, which British people love to go there on vacation. There's nice shopping malls and beaches and stuff. And I've mentioned there have been at least two occasions that I've read of where women went to the police to report that they had been raped, and they were arrested because they had sex outside of wedlock, which is illegal whether or not you consent. Now there's a big story about a woman who is going to be jailed for 25 years for possession of cocaine, which shouldn't be a crime anywhere, but even where it is, you don't spend basically your kind of most of your adult life is or a big chunk of it is what she's going to be spending there. Yeah, think first of all, think before you go on vacation. Beyond are the beaches? They're really nice. And yeah, think of who your allies are and what are their values, and are they real allies or are they just not as bad as your enemies? Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, a few quick. Well, first on the traveling part, beautiful thing about both European nations and America itself is they contain pretty much the whole range of natural habitats and sort of cities. So visiting America, you can pretty much get everything you would want out of most of the world, and you can retain some moral integrity from not supporting dictatorships through your tourism. When it comes to sort of the United Arab Emirates being an ally or not, it's you have to frame things properly. I think if Iran was dismantled or the current regime was taken out, if the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was resolved in a way that basically Palestinians are no longer a threat to Israel, at that point, I don't think United Arab Emirates would like be a problem to Israel. But I don't think United Arab Emirates, if they saw Israel gone, I don't think they would weep that much. So that's the way you sort of have to think of that. When it comes to earlier mention about sort of Netanyahu jumping on, you know, somebody wants to be friends with Israel. And it's always like the nations that are the furthest away from Israel. Like take the Abraham Accords. Okay, let's take the most Western Muslim nation we can find, Morocco. Okay, let's get that one. Let's take Sudan, one of the most southern nations down that has never really had that much problem with Israel. And let's bring in Bahrain, that I always even forget its name because I always forget that it's actually on the continent as well. And yeah, Indonesia, the most eastern Muslim nation we can find. And well, Indonesia is not part of the Abraham Accords, but now mentioning Indonesia, it's like, okay, good thing that maybe, well, not necessarily good, but okay, they want to have normalized relations with Israel, but that doesn't really solve anything. We have a problem much more closer that needs to be solved. And again, those nations do not play a role when it comes to. It's similar to United Arab Emirates in a way. It's like, okay, it's nice, but they do not solve the fundamental issue. It's distraction of trying to go to them instead of focusing on the fact that it's Iran, it's Qatar, and of course the terrorist groups inside of or close to Israel and around it. And just quickly, because who was it? It was PC who said, I'm not sure about 5G. I think you should check with the Secretary of Health in America, because I'm not sure he would have nice things to say about that.
You know, jokes like this got a few of our episodes banned from YouTube, but not exactly. But similar.
Oh, okay,
Kidding.
sure.
Okay, yeah. What did I want to say? Thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Thank you, Bulmus, for the super chat. Bulmus says South Yemen said they'll consider signing it. Yeah, Yemen. Oh, South Yemen. Oh, sorry, I'm confused. I thought South Sudan for a second because Daniel was giving us the World Muslim Tour. By the way, those tours are available. Go to Daniel's YouTube channel. Anyway, yeah, South Yemen. South Yemen is talking about. There was a statement from their leader a few days ago about a two-state solution for Yemen. So they've given up on actually fighting the Houthis. And yeah, uh, anyway, but Yemen is a story for another day, and it is a story that needs to be discussed. You know, the latest is that the Houthis are planning an invasion of Israel, Hamas-style invasion from and are training people to go to Jordan and maybe Egypt and invade from there. And that is something that should be Israel should really take into consideration. It steps up its game in Yemen every time the Houthis do something successful, but it should be also a bit more preemptive. Um, all right, there was a point I wanted. Oh yeah. Actually, yeah, I'll make that point now. So at some point, Netanyahu said that Israel will keep fighting Hamas until it is defeated. Now, I've said if you pretend that the enemy is Hamas rather than the Palestinians, then you can't actually win. But even with this, there is the question of how this is going to hold up in a few days, specifically Monday when Netanyahu is meeting Trump. We don't know what's going to happen in that meeting. We don't know what's going to happen in the photo op. Trump really enjoys these photo ops with world leaders and enjoys, doing the unexpected. Netanyahu has had a really successful one and then a really bad one. And, there's no telling. I mean, there's no telling what's going to happen. But if we're going to guess based on Trump's latest statements, this is not going to be one of the nicer moments of the Israel-Trump relationship, Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with Trump, there's so many, but one of the key ones is just his unpredictability. And I think it must be very hard for Netanyahu and any world leaders to plan when Trump is so whim driven and volatile and and reacts to personalities and perceived slights. Um, it's hard to know. So I really I feel for Netanyahu in this meeting. I don't envy him.
Yeah. Unless you're Erdogan, I think you never know what you're gonna get with Trump.
Right.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering to what extent, because realistically, there is sort of behind the scenes of politics and sort of what we as a public get to know, right? As I mean, somebody that I can speak from a local level in Slovakia, at least from what I've seen or what I've heard from people I know within the political movements. Apparently, it's a big thing where, yeah, people argue, but when it comes to actually being in the politics, oftentimes they talk to each other nicely. They pass each other's laws like cross party based on being in opposition. And I'm wondering to what extent is Trump behind the scenes different than in front of the scenes? Because yeah, in some extent. I mean, if you are Netanyahu who meets with Trump or even calls with Trump, only every so often, how can you really base policy around sort of somebody changing his mind? And I'm wondering to what extent does that vision align or that vision evolve throughout uh, basically throughout the months, right? Like when it comes to Iran, and I think we've talked about it, was it the idea from the start that basically America will attack and then Trump will go for a ceasefire, or was it really just him changing his mind or deciding later? To what extent did Netanyahu know? Because yeah, even when it comes to Gaza policy, you have one day Trump posting AI generated Gaza Riviera videos. And yeah, then you have him saying, no, nobody will get deported. Israel will play no role. Israel will not annex any the West Bank. And we will establish this authority. Uh, so yeah, it's like I like politics. I like being involved in politics. This is what I hate about Trump. It's really hard to talk politics because for to talk politics you actually need some ideas that are going around or some policies that are going around that we can comment on. But when it really is just maybe this will happen, maybe something else will happen. I guess we'll see when it happens, and then we might we might be able to comment on it.
So here's the thing with deportations. Yeah, I very much noted that deportations were not mentioned in this speech, and I see that as a positive. And viewers of this channel know that I absolutely think there is no way forward without deporting the population of Gaza after they are defeated in war. Um, the thing is, I don't trust Netanyahu to do, he certainly is not going to do what I'm advocating for and what I think should be done. He might do bits of it here and he does bits of it here and there. And so thinking about what is the best case scenario, knowing that it's Netanyahu, uh, the best case scenario is some of the population being deported in some sort of half-ass measures, with maybe leaving open the possibility of them returning. And if that's going to happen, and to the extent that that's going to happen, and kind of is happening a little bit now, but not on a big enough scale, um, it's going to happen without fanfare. It needs to happen kind of as on the down low. That's unfortunate. I still think Bibi, if you're watching, and I know you are, then look, Libya is the place. Libya is a weak dictatorship. You can force it on them. You can say, look, you were carving out a bit of your desert, and that is where the Palestinians are going to be, or else. That can be done. But yeah, Netanyahu, There's the famous image of him, famous among objectivists, image of him in the Knesset reading, holding John David Lewis's Nothing Less Than Victory. We know that that has not been his policy. I doubt that I will be more convincing. But yeah, Stuart.
Well, I vote for you to run Israel if it ever comes to that. But
Thanks, but absolutely no thanks. No,
right,
run the
no,
Ayn
I.
Rand Center UK. This is going to be a massive demotion. I'm not taking it.
Well, I would love for him to listen more closely to you. That would be great. Um, yeah, it's. I mean, I listening to this speech. It was so good to hear. The incredible achievements that Israel has had over the last year and 2 years, but mostly last year. But also knowing that there isn't the clear moral certainty that is needed to really execute this and what needs to be done. I mean, there's a lot of things that I certainly don't have the answer to, but there's a lot of things that I know are not the right way to go, and certainly giving Palestine nationhood is just so far from anything that's going to lead to peace or prosperity or anything good. It's just astonishing to me that so much of the world now is supporting this. And in the absence of even, who would run such a nation, what would its borders be? I mean, it's just absurd to me that it has gotten this far this quickly and this soon after October 7th. I mean, I know people in general have a short attention span, but my God, it's not even been 2 years. It's just astonishing to me.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up. So he did call out some of those world leaders for doing just that and rewarding terrorism. Um, what did you think of the way he did that?
I don't know. I don't think I had a strong opinion about it, but I take it you did. Was that one of the things you responded negatively to?
I'm not sure. I mean, it was, harsh words. I would have liked to kind of personalize it a little bit. He had 40 minutes there. If he had spent, if I was writing that speech, he would have spent a little less time, as in 100% less time talking about innocent civilians in Gaza. And Baby specifically called out, I'd like to hear him call out Starmer, but I live here, and Macron. And yeah, the Prime Minister of Portugal maybe isn't important enough to fit into that speech, but some of those leaders are. Uh,
Spain?
what?
Spain?
No, Spain
Spain.
might be. Portugal also no, Spain recognized Palestinian state before. Portugal was one of the countries in the most. Yeah, you don't even know because it's that unimportant. But uh, but so yeah, but overall, you know what? I'll take it. At least he said something.
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, he brought up the fact that publicly people stand up to Israel, but in private they tell him, you're doing a good job. And I'm wondering to what extent it's true. And then again, I wish he would actually name people, because what does it, like we have so it's not Spain. I mean, Spain is actually shutting down, is putting sanctions on Israel, is shutting down trade. All of the EU is considering shutting down basically a certain amount of trade or association agreement with Israel over it. So I'm wondering, like, is this part of the play? It's like, okay, we will destroy Israel, but we're just playing. We are just playing this in private. We are with you, but we will help others destroy Israel. Like, at what point do we say, okay, like you might just be playing it, but you're just playing it on the out is actually helping the destruction of Israel? At what point do we call it out of, okay, you no longer can take this cheap attack on Israel because it actually materializes into something. So yeah, I wish we had sort of like more name calling in a way, so we know more about basically where should the main anger go or main criticism go to what European leaders, generally all of them have pretty much, or at least all Western. I think there are few better nations in EU, but very, very, very few. Um, Something I wanted to bring up just because I saw it. I was reading the Middle East Eye, as I do, and I've seen this quote. This was about the Netanyahu's UN speech, and this was one sentence they had there. More than 238,000 Palestinians have either been killed, wounded, or are missing since Israel launched its genocidal campaign, with recent reports based on Israeli military intelligence data indicating that more than 80% of those killed in the enclave until May of this year were civilians. So here this is 238,000 have either been killed, wounded, or are missing. What kind of grouping is that? It's like, oh yeah, million people were brutally murdered or have lost their cat.
And missing, like, does that count everybody who hasn't tweeted, uh, you know, put a dot in the comments because nobody can see my tweets? By the way, but that is a whole episode that's coming at some point. The Gaza grift on Twitter, at least that's where I see it. I'm sure it exists elsewhere.
I haven't seen this number before, so I don't. They didn't source it, so I have no idea where they took this one
Middle East
from. But
Eye is one of the ones who puts Israel in scare quotes, right? When they talk about Israel.
not in this one, at least.
Oh, okay.
So
So they're good. They're friends like Indonesia. Um, you mentioned Spain, and I have to say, before Tony Blair popped up on my feed this morning, and became the topic of the Daily Objective, Spain almost became it was almost the fourth day in a row that we were going to talk about the flotilla, just because yesterday we talked about Spain sending a Navy ship to accompany the flotilla. Turns out that Navy ship has Israeli weapons. Like that's they're basically it's an Israeli armed ship, which on the one hand that might be a concern to Israel. On the other hand, it is manned by the Spanish Navy, so I wouldn't be too afraid. Thank you, Equal to Reality, for the super chat. Equal to Reality asks, off topic, what are your thoughts on the UK government's mandatory new digital ID proposal? Apologies, I have not looked into it. I am going to take a wild guess and say that when I do, I will be against it. I was against uh, I was somewhat against Tony Blair's ID idea when it came about. I do have to say, in the UK, when you go to vote, at least when it's been over a decade since I've voted here, I think. Uh, I remember voting in the UK, and like you don't have to show any proof that you are the person. You basically need the name and the postal code. If that is still how voting happens in the UK, yeah, I would probably, require some sort of proof that you are the person who you're claiming to be. But I am sure that whatever Keir Starmer's government came up with is not that. It is most likely an invasion of privacy. But again, that's my assumption based on everything I know about Keir Starmer and Labour, not anything I know about this. Uh, Stuart or Daniel, if either of you have actually looked into this story, even though neither of you live in the UK, speak now or forever hold your peace, or at least until the next time you're on.
think it was I think it was the first or the second episode of Yes Minister, where Jim Hackett was elected, and he was supposed to introduce the Europass into the British legislation. And funnily, somebody responded to that digital ID. Somebody responded to that would be the first step toward 30s Nazi Germany. And I think Jim Hackett said something like, Europass, next thing they'll say that I'm introducing a police state. So apparently the British really do not like any idea of ID cards, and it goes back decades.
Yeah, I've heard of Europass. As far as I know, that's a kind of a monthly train pass where you can ride, or I don't know if they still have that. But
Maybe it was
that
just
that
Rail
made
I
up
pass.
for the show. Like it
what?
was supposed to be like identity card for all European citizens, technically.
Stuart, what were you saying about the Europass?
I think it's called a Ural pass if it's
Oh,
for rail. But yeah, I don't have an opinion on this because I this is actually the first I've heard about it.
well, I'm sure we will look at it more. I don't know if we'll do an episode about it because Starmer does a lot of bad things, and we only have 2 shows a day. One of the things I liked in Netanyahu's speech was, and I'm sorry I didn't write the quote down, but he said something like, the problem isn't the fact that there isn't a Palestinian state, but it's the fact that there is a Jewish state, and that is the problem. If you listen to anybody in the pro-Palestine movement, they have, they wear, these necklaces with the map of Israel. They don't wear like the 1967 borders. It would have to be 2 necklaces, I guess. But they're advocating for the elimination of Israel, wiping Israel off the map. So yeah, well said on that point, Stuart.
Yeah, that's what I don't think that the majority of the people that are, free Palestine and nation of Palestine, they don't understand, they don't realize that what that means to the Palestinians is the elimination of Israel. People have this, they've made up essentially a fictional idea of the Palestinian people as, this oppressed people that just want to live their lives and just want to be able to control their own destiny and live in peace. It's like that. I mean, I'm sure there's some Palestinians out there like that, but that is not the majority. That is not the people that are out there promoting the nation of Palestine. It's just not. And they're quite open about it. It's not like you have to dig to uncover this, the secret that it's like, no, it's there in Hamas's charter. It's there in virtually any speech, any document. It's, and yet people evade it. Most of the people that I know that are pro-Palestine, they don't want the elimination of Israel. They want, they're imagining, oh, if they could just be like the US and Mexico. You have border control, everything's fine, everybody's happy. They're like children, really, in terms of their understanding of it. It's sad, but it's scary because there's a lot of them.
Well, I mean, on the point of this comment by Netanyahu, again, the headlines were world leaders or delegates walk out of Netanyahu's speech, even though this happens every year. And this is when they say it didn't start on October 7th. This also didn't start on October 7th. Every year, the Israeli prime minister speaks at the UN, and every year, since the dawn of time or the beginning of Israeli prime ministers speaking at the General Assembly. This always happens, and they walk out not because of what Israel is doing in Gaza, but because Israel exists. Thank you, Bulmus, for the super chat. Bulmus says Israel should start installing backdoors into its hardware when it sells to other countries like the US does with its aircraft. I'm sure that will never happen. And, accidents mysteriously happen to some of Israel's enemies. That's on a completely unrelated note. Daniel.
Yeah, something I wanted to bring up when it comes to the Palestinian issue is something to remember is the destruction of Israel is a genocide, is a two-way genocide. It means the end of Israelis and it means the end of Palestinians because there is no definition of Palestinians outside of resistance, if you want to put it in those terms, to Israel. Again, look up any Palestinian anywhere in the world. It's a political statement saying you're a Palestinian, saying you resist or you want the destruction of the state of Israel. Look at how people refer to Palestinians. Are the Arabs in Israel proper Palestinians? If you are the pro-Palestinians, they say they are. If you ask the Israelis, they say they are not. They are different people. When you ask the individual Arabs inside of Israel, those who say they are Palestinians, they mean it ideologically. They mean they do not want the existence of the state of Israel. Once Israel is gone, Palestinians are gone because there is no longer such a thing. It no longer means anything. So that's the important part. Again, like try to find, if you go to Israelis, you have Jews calling for the destruction of Israel. You do not have a single Palestinian calling for establishment of a Israeli state over all the territories with, some possible reformation of the Arabs so they could eventually integrate into the Israeli society. It's always a political statement. You're muted. You're still muted.
Oh, I just said my best line. I was saying we're coming towards the end of the show, and I don't think we've criticized the parts that deserve criticism enough. So, uh, yeah, Netanyahu spends a chunk of time in this speech addressing the genocide blood libel. And I've said on this show many times, and the other show on this channel, the point of the accusation isn't that anybody actually believes that the word genocide, as it is defined, applies in any way to Israel's half-ass response to October 7th in Gaza. People say it to move the conversation from an obvious understanding of who the villains in this situation are, which is the Palestinians, to Israel is obviously the villain. And now let's talk about the extent to which it is a villain. This is what South Africa was doing in November 2023 when they brought the case against Israel. And Netanyahu decided, even though there was no need to do so, that Israel is going to respond to that in that court in The Hague. Going through, we've killed so few civilians compared to combatants, and we send so much food in, more than the recommended daily amounts of calories, blah, blah, blah. And what he didn't say, but is absolutely the case, we have sacrificed hundreds of soldiers' lives for the purpose of protecting Palestinians, where the same mission could have been accomplished from the air and was not always accomplished on the ground, but soldiers died in many of those cases on the ground. This is allowing the Palestinian side to completely control the narrative. When you go through every data point to prove that it is not a genocide, you are letting them, you are accepting that they are somehow the victim. And I think that is unfortunate, Stuart.
It is unfortunate, but I also know why he does it. I mean, it's because the lies are so widespread, and the refutation of the lies are really quite simple. I mean, he manages to do it in like 2 minutes. It's like, here's the data, here's the data, here's the data. This is, so I understand the urge to do that. I wish that he had the moral clarity to, maybe list those things and then at the end say, but the relevant fact is, we were attacked. We are the victim, and we have the right. He did say elsewhere that, if this had happened to the U.S. or any other nation, would you be, criticizing their response? And of course, he's right. The U.S. would, I mean, we probably would have been mealy-mouthed too, to some extent, as we were after 9/11. But nobody would have questioned our right to defend ourselves. So I do understand where he's coming from, but I also know that, yeah, in the end, you are letting them craft the narrative, and unfortunately they've been very good at it. I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, they have really mastered that, and they're winning the propaganda war, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I do want to say I also understand the urge to do that. I would just encourage him to resist the urge, but also all the things he listed shouldn't be happening. They
Right.
shouldn't be feeding the Palestinians. That's why the Palestinians are still fighting the war that they started. They shouldn't be sacrificing soldiers, even if it means civilians, die, because that is not on Israel. And but yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, that is the sort of thing when it comes to, I mean, debunking things that he did, which, again, he did a decent job of that. One thing that has to be said is no amount of data, no amount of explanation, nothing can go against a single picture of supposedly starving Palestinian child. It's like that automatically wins in the current culture. So you are putting yourself in the war shoe. You simply have to do what is necessary in Gaza. Again, I hate the state of the world right now, because oftentimes there are interesting. I mean, the idea of how do you properly fight this like insurgent war, and what is the good criteria, and how do you make sure you do the best you can. That is potentially like an interesting discussion that I'm interested in, but nobody cares. Like that, like it's not like there is a world where Israel could do this operation properly. It never is. It's similar to international law. Sometimes I like to go read the UN Charter, go read the international law specifics that are being brought up to see, okay, what does here apply. And then a random group says Israel is committing a genocide, and everybody takes it at face value. So it's like, okay, I thought ICJ was supposed to decide if there is a genocide or not. I didn't know there is this random group that apparently now gets supremacy over ICJ. So it's all a charade. It like UN is basically some nerd said, "Oh, it would be nice if it was like that," and then everybody said, "Okay, but we can use it to bash Israel, and we don't even have to care about what the specific things say." So, I mean, yeah, go read the UN Charter, go and see what it says, and go look at the countries that are inside the UN and to what extent they uphold it, and you'll see for yourself.
Okay, I have a closing statement that I want to make, but I will go first to Stuart for parting thoughts and where can people find you?
You can find me at stuartmargolis.substack.com and also on Facebook. Parting thoughts is just my heart goes out to Israel. I just they are so much, for all of the flaws that obviously Netanyahu has, Israel as a nation has, they are so far and away the good guys in this fight. And it just breaks my heart that they're going through this. It's unspeakable, really, but here we are.
Daniel, parting thoughts and where can people find you?
I mean, I summarized most of it. So, just when it comes to the speech, I think it was definitely better than last year. I think if this is a speech to us rather to them, and I know I'm using them and us, I think it was relatively a good speech. Netanyahu should, again, care less about how much aid is going in and how well he is debunking the blood libel against Israel, because again, the main thing about blood libel is you cannot really debunk it. It's inherently irrational. Where can people find me? On my YouTube channel, Damned Dan. Next week there is a Czech parliamentary election, so I was following it, so I might actually cover it live, although they do it over 2 days. So it's gonna be an interesting election. Communists are running again in that one, so definitely check that out.
Um, okay, a big part of Netanyahu's job, and it wouldn't be in an ideal world, but it is in the world we live in, is managing Trump's whims and emotional instability. Israel is very dependent on the U.S. and yeah, Netanyahu has to keep Trump happy and very importantly, not ever make Trump look bad, because if you do something that, looks like he's stuck on an escalator or something, it's very, very bad as a world leader, and especially as the leader of Israel, where you're dependent on the U.S. I've said often since that moment happened that the hell to pay uh, comment by Trump, if all the hostages aren't released by Saturday at whatever time, uh, was it hell to pay or the gates of hell will open or something like that. I used the word hell. Uh, Netanyahu didn't follow through. That made Trump look bad, but also was the best opportunity for Israel to actually uh, do some of what needs to be done in Gaza. I really, really hope that we are not gonna regret even more the fact that Netanyahu didn't take advantage of that. And I'm afraid of what we're going to find out on Monday. But whatever it is, we will cover it here. And look, when you look at the UN General Assembly, it is a cesspool. It's really the most despicable people on the planet. Just looking at it, you want to think, is there any hope? And yes, there is. There are good people, leaders, not in politics, but in business, in the real world, doing amazing things. And we have put together a group of some of the best among them. They are going to be speaking over a weekend in Orange County, California, next month. It is exactly a month from today and yesterday, or the 2 days of the conference, the 25th, 26th. Make sure you sign up, objectivism.co.uk. Link is in the chat. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow with the Daily Objective.